Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Fegley, and I'm with the Fegley Law Firm. We specialize in employment and personal injury law. So tonight, I want to talk to you about sexual harassment. Let's just chase the elephant right out of the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's an uncomfortable subject, especially in mixed company. But if I was able to read your minds, I would bet that I would find several people in here who probably have experienced sexual harassment at some time during their work career. What I want to talk about tonight is exactly what constitutes sexual harassment, the kind of behaviors that can get us into trouble, and then what can we do? What in the workplace as employers so that our workforces are trained and sensitive to the topic, and then as an employee, if you're working for an employer, and something happens to you, then what can you do to minimize the chances of having this type of exposure and avoid it, take care of it, make sure it's corrected properly. I have 3 daughters, and 2 of them are going to be graduating from high school in a couple of weeks, going off to college, and before long, they will be in their own careers. So this is just more than my practice of law. It's more than just a topical subject. I do not want my daughters going into their first jobs and looking forward to their careers and then having to run into something like this and being judged or being treated in a way that's going to affect their growth in their career. I want them to work based on their merits and their attitudes as people and not just based on gender. So in the law, in the practice of law, we talk about 2 different types of harassment. First is what we call quid pro quo, or this for that, which means, hey, I want you to do something for me, and in exchange, either I'm going to make life good for you, or I'm going to make life very difficult for you. That is absolutely inappropriate, unlawful, illegal in the workplace. You should never condition anyone's job performance, raises, bonuses, the kind of office they get or anything like that on any type of acquiescence to sexual favors, or on the contrary, if they object, if they put you down, to punish them or to treat them poorly. I don't see this type of harassment very frequently anymore. I am sure it is still prevalent in a lot of corporate settings, but this type of behavior, fortunately, is not the most common that we see. What I see a lot more often is what we call the hostile work environment. Now, with the hostile work environment, it's probably the most abused term in the legal profession. I get frequent calls from people who call me up and they're saying that they work in a hostile work environment. Hostile work environment doesn't mean that you just have a obnoxious boss, or that the boss is picking on you and making you do things that you don't want to do, or watching you come in and hitting you if you're 2 minutes late. That is not the legal definition of a hostile work environment. Hostile work environment has to do with somebody who's directing that kind of behavior at you or the person because of their gender, again. And it's got to be either severe, can be a one-time. If it's severe enough, like a physical assault, that alone could create a hostile work environment. But more typically, it's pervasive. It's something that occurs over a period of time. Most of the situations that I see start out with a simple joke or simple comment about the person's appearance or dress, or a little joke or an article, sexual article left, and the guys think it's funny and they make comments about it around women, and then the behavior starts to accelerate. I just finished a case against the state of New Jersey in which my client was a very sweet but soft-spoken woman. She was the only female in an all-male unit within the state of New Jersey. And because of that, they targeted her with what they thought were jokes, sexual jokes. They left pictures around. She would share with them, amazingly, stories of dates that she had had and some social experiences that she had had, and they took this information and turned it around to make fun of her in certain ways, again, kind of making pictures, characterizing some of these difficult experiences that she'd had with dates and things like that. And this behavior kept on and kept on, and despite all of the policies and procedures that the state of New Jersey had, the managers in this case did very little about it, and it got to a point where it altered her work environment. She literally had to take a medical leave of absence because she had such anxiety and depression develop from wondering, what's going to happen to me today? I'm coming into my work, and am I going to be subjected to this treatment again today? There are no excuses. You can't simply say, well, as they did in this case that I just mentioned, we were just kidding. We were just joking. And you can't say that the victim never complained. Well, it's her fault because she didn't say anything. She didn't speak up. That's the one thing that you have to be careful about, especially as employers, because somebody may be quiet and sitting there and maybe even giggling along, as my client was. They brought this up in her deposition. Oh, you were giggling along. Well, just because somebody's giggling along, again, doesn't mean it's unwelcome. You have to be careful in the company that you keep and the type of language and behavior that you engage in.